Tonight is the death anniversary of Rabbi Ashlag. There is so much that can and needs to be said about Rabbi Ashlag, but in this short presentation I would like to share with you some of what excites me or is important to me about this amazing soul, this amazing person who came down into our world in our generation. Rabbi Ashlag's soul is one of those souls that comes down to our world not very often. Probably there was Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, Rav Isaac Luria the Ari, and then Rav Ashlag. And Rav Ashlag explains that the reason why he merited to reveal the wisdom that he did, he was really the person who opened up in our time, and really for the first time in history, the gates of the wisdom of Kabbalah so that they can be accessible to the entire world. And the reason why he was allowed to do this was because the world was ready. One of the great lessons from the life of Rav Ashlag and from the trouble that he went through is that this revelation and this amazing work of revealing this wisdom to the world cannot occur easily. There have to be struggles, there has to be difficulty. Rav Ashlag himself was beat up because he tried to teach this wisdom. And when you look back and sort of relate Rav Ashlag's problems to what my parents, the Rav and Karen, went through afterwards, you see that what Rav Ashlag was actually trying to do initially was on a much smaller scale even than what my parents tried to do. And certainly that's probably one of the reasons why the opposition to their work was so much stronger. But even in Rav Ashlag's time, the thought to teach the Zohar, to teach the wisdom of Kabbalah to even men, was something that had never been done before. And Rav Ashlag knew that the time had come to break down the barriers, to break down the wall between the people and this wisdom. More importantly, he knew that only when this wall is broken down, when this wisdom is disseminated to the entire world, could pain and suffering be removed from our world. And that is why he did nothing else with his life except dedicate it to teaching this wisdom, to making sure that the books that he writes and the lessons that he teaches will be available so that anybody who wants will be able to partake and taste of this wisdom. I always know when somebody is truly a student of Kabbalah, or if they're just passing through, if they become excited about the teachings of Rav Ashlag. Because the teachings of Rav Ashlag are really the root, the essence of what the center is about, and really the essence of what Kabbalah is about. It is not a philosophical study, it isn't simply wisdom to learn, but it is a way to change ourselves. And Rav Ashlag, specifically in his amazing work, The Gift of the Bible, Matan Torah, he makes it very clear that no other purpose to our spiritual work is important, not gaining wisdom, not becoming holy, other than transformation. And I'd like to share a few of the teachings of Rav Ashlag. One of the important lessons he teaches us is actually in a story that he tells. He tells in a lengthy letter that he writes to his brother-in-law of his story with his teacher. And we won't read through the entire letter, but just to gain the basic understanding. I'd like to share with you first a letter that Rav Ashlag wrote to his brother-in-law, within which he explains the story of his meeting of his teacher and how he truly learned this wisdom from him. And Rav Ashlag writes, on the 12th day of the month of Cheshvan, on Friday morning, a man came to me, and I saw that he was a very wise man, and that he knew this wisdom, the wisdom of Kabbalah. And not only that, he was wise in all other kinds of wisdom. And he writes, V'techet b'tchilat diburo, as my teacher, Rav Ashlag's teacher, began talking, I felt v'ta'amti ki chochmat Elohim b'kirbo. I tasted and I saw that he had the wisdom of God within him. V'chol dvarav behaflaga gdola beitparut atzmit. But one thing Rav Ashlag said that he noted was that this man seemed to have a very big ego. Im kol ze ha'emanti be'od b'chol komati v'chushi. But nevertheless, I believed in him with my entire being. And this man promised to reveal to me the wisdom of Kabbalah, as it is known, Chochmat HaEmet, the wisdom of truth. Ve'asakti imo kimo gimel chodashim, and for 3 months, from that day, for 3 months, I studied with him, every night after midnight. And all the wisdom that he taught me dealt with holiness, and purity. And every time I would ask him to reveal to me a secret of Kabbalah. And he would start telling me the basics, but he never completed one secret to me. And I felt a tremendous yearning from the lack of the completion of these secrets from my teacher. Once he completed an entire secret. He told me the whole thing from beginning to end. And I was tremendously happy. My joy knew no end. And Rabbi Ashlag writes, though, unfortunately, from then on, I began growing my ego. And when my ego grew too big, my teacher left me. And Rav Ashlag saying, but his ego had overtaken him so much that he didn't even feel that his teacher was leaving him. And this separation went on for 3 months. So that towards the end of this 3 months, I couldn't even find him in his house. Then, Rav Ashlag says, for the first time, I felt truly that he had distanced himself from me. And I felt that pain, and I began changing my ways. And then, finally, on the 9th day of Nisan, in the morning, I met him, I found him, and I begged him to come and teach me again. And he became close to me. He accepted me again, and he came close to me as he was before. And he revealed to me a secret concerning the mikveh, a mikveh that was measured and found to be missing. And from that secret, from the revelation of that secret, Rav Ashlag says, my joy again knew no bounds. But Rav Ashlag writes, I saw that he was becoming weak. I did not leave his house. And the next day, the next day on the 10th of Nisan, my teacher, Shavak Chaim Nechol Alma, my teacher left this world. And it's an amazing thing to realize. Rav Ashlag met his teacher for 3 months. His ego grew from a wisdom that he got. His teacher left him then for 3 months. And he met him again, but only for 1 day. And Rav Ashlag writes, "V'godel tzari ein la'alot al haktav." And he says, I can't put down in words the pain that I felt. Because I had hoped to gain this wisdom, the wisdom of Kabbalah. And what Rav Ashlag is saying is that he did not merit in the short time that he was with his teacher to get the wisdom that he thought he was going to get. And Rav Ashlag writes, and I was left naked, without anything. And even what I had gained from my teacher, the wisdom that I had received from him, I had lost it from the pain that I was feeling. And from then on, I looked up to heaven with a tremendous yearning that knew no bounds. Not for one moment in the day did I stop begging and yearning for a connection to this light, a connection to this wisdom. Until I found favor in the eyes of the Creator. And the merit of my teacher and his wisdom stood for me and assisted me. And my heart opened up in this amazing wisdom. And it began flowing, the wisdom began flowing into me and from me like an ever-flowing well. And I also merited to remember the tremendous secrets that I had received from my teacher. And Rav Ashlag writes, how can I, who have nothing, thank the Creator? And the Creator, Rav Ashlag writes, knew that I had no wisdom and no brain and no smart. אפילו להודות ולהלל בשביל טובותיו העצומים. I don't even have, Rav Ashlag says, enough understanding to thank the Creator for all the amazing gifts that He has given me. אומנם מי יאמר לו מה תעשה ומה תפעל. But again, Rav Ashlag says, who can tell the Creator who to choose to be His channel? And then Rav Ashlag writes about his teacher. ומורי הקדוש הנזכר היה מתפרנס ממסחרים גדולים. My teacher was a very famous and known trader, and that's the way he made his living. והיה מפורסם בכל העיר לסוחר נאמן, and everybody knew that he was trustworthy and that he was a good businessman. אבל בחוכמת הקבלה לא הכיר בו שום אדם. But nobody knew that he had any understanding of this amazing wisdom of Kabbalah. עד היום הזה, till today, ולא נתן לי רשות לגלות שמו, and he did not give me permission to reveal his name. There's a lot that we need to learn from this letter from Rav Ashlag. But within this letter, I think Rav Ashlag teaches us some of the most important lessons that we can gain from him. First is that the only way to truly gain an understanding and a connection to this wisdom is by yearning. It can almost be said that the entire reason why Rav Ashlag met his teacher was to truly awaken within him a desire for this wisdom and the light that it holds. Because again, the amazing thing is that he met him for 3 months, then he met him for 1 day, and then he forgot all the wisdom that his teacher taught him. But from that moment on, he knew what he was lacking. He knew the wisdom that he had lost. And he kept on begging and asking and begging and asking, not stopping for 1 second in the day. And only because of that, only because he knew that his life was no life without this wisdom, that there was no purpose for his life without this wisdom, did he merit to receive that light. Did he merit to be the channel, probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest channel for the dissemination and revelation of this wisdom in history. Tonight we have an opportunity to connect to his soul, to connect to the essence of this amazing, amazing soul. You know, there are many places in Israel and many places throughout the world where one can make a connection to the righteous people. But I know for myself, and I know for many others, there is no place that you really feel it like at the grave of Rav Ashlag, for many reasons. But one of them, I think, is because he was in our time. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, even the Ari Rav Isaac Luria, they're from a previous time. They weren't in the world, at least physically, as we are today. But Rav Ashlag was here until only over 50 years ago. And he knows the world that we live in, and he, I think, accepts us because of the world that we are in. But when you go to the grave of Rav Ashlag, and this light is available to us tonight, even if we're not physically there, because our minds can be there. What we can gain from Rav Ashlag is, first, a true yearning for this light. And second, which is a very important lesson, truth. Rav Ashlag says that from when he was a young boy, he could never tell a lie. It wasn't because he didn't want to, but because the truth became so important to him that he could not live with a lie. Unfortunately, many of us still practice Kabbalah, connect to this wisdom, but lie to ourselves, live within a realm of lies. Rav Ashlag's teachings, the true teachings of Kabbalah, it's called the Chokhmat HaEmet, the wisdom of truth, where no lies can be told, not to the world, but more importantly, not to ourselves. On this day when Rav Ashlag passed away, we have the opportunity to connect to truth, to the real truth, real spiritual work, real spiritual wisdom, real spiritual connection. And many other times and many other connections we can lie to ourselves, but you can't connect to Rav Ashlag and lie to yourself. We have an amazing opportunity tonight to connect to this amazing, amazing soul, but more importantly, we should ask that we want to connect to Rav Ashlag because we want to truly connect to this wisdom. And one of the things the Rav taught us, a true Kabbalist, a true connection to Rav Ashlag, is when we dedicate ourselves to their work, when we dedicate ourselves to disseminating this wisdom as they dedicated their lives. Before Rav Ashlag passed away, on the night of Yom Kippur, before Yom Kippur, he told the students to come early to the prayers in the morning. He knew, of course, that he was going to leave this world, but many of his students probably did not. He asked them to come earlier to the prayers, and he prayed in a room separate from the main synagogue. And he was praying the morning prayers of Shacharit, and he came to the verse, which for me is a very powerful verse, obviously. And this was the last words that Rabbi Ashlag said in this world. He said, Orech yamim azbiehu, which means I will give him the length of years, length of days, ve'ar'eu bishuati, and I will allow him, I will give him the merit, the ability to see my redemption. And with those words, Orech yamim azbiehu, ve'ar'eu bishuati, Rabbi Ashlag left this world. And I think what he was telling us, of course he was telling us many things, but one is that if we connect to the true path of Kabbalah, to the true path that he revealed, followed by his student, Rav Brandwein, and then followed by his student, the Rav, we can, if we dedicate ourselves to this work with yearning and truth, we can all merit Orech yamim hazbiehu ve'ar'eu bishuati, to merit that every single one of us will be alive and here when the final redemption comes.